tip is on how to properly use inflation in the ANSYS mesher. Turning control over to Matt Bosley. Matt, the screen is yours.
Thanks, Dan. So we'll be looking at the various methods available in the ANSYS mesher for defining inflation for a CFD analysis. And just as a refresher, when we talk about inflation and inflation layers, we're talking about a method by which we locally refine the mesh on the boundary surfaces in a flow analysis with the intent to more accurately resolve the boundary layer. So particularly with highly turbulent flows where you might have large velocity gradients near the boundary, near the walls of your pipe or what have you, you'll want to use an inflation layer to more accurately resolve that velocity gradient and pressure gradient, which is shown in a cartoon there on the right-hand side. This is typically what we'll see when you zoom in very closely near the boundary. We skip over to ANSYS mesher. What I have here is just that scenario. I have just of a simple tube, and flow is going to move in through the inlet on the left and the outlet on the right. So very basic model. And you'll see there I have a name selection for the inlet, the outlet, and the surface. The first method that we'll talk about is using, under global controls, automatic inflation. So you'll see there in the details pane of the mesh item, there is the capability to add automatic inflation. It defaults to no, but we can change it to either program controlled or all faces in chosen name selection. So the first of the four options we'll talk about is program controlled. What program controlled is going to do is inflate any boundary that does not have a name selection defined. So what we'll do in this case is we'll go ahead and delete that name selection for the walls so that we only have name selections for the inlet and outlet. And when I generate that mesh, what we should see is that it inflates the boundary that was not included in any name selection. And sure enough, we zoom in on the front inlet of the pipe there, and we have a nice boundary layer. Now, this may not ultimately be the final boundary layer that we, or our inflation layer rather, that we end up with, but it's give us a good start, and we can go into the details pane and tweak our settings. The next option is the converse, where we actually intentionally select the name selections that we want to inflate. So we'll go back and we'll create a name selection. We'll recreate that wall's name selection. And now I'm going to say that that is the name selection I want to inflate. So again, it's the converse of everything but the walls. Now we are explicitly defining a name selection on the walls, or inflation layer rather, on the walls. So this is automatic inflation, and this is global. However, you may have a model, not surprisingly, where you want to inflate certain bodies or specific regions in a body. And for that case, we'll actually want to turn off the automatic inflation feature and right-click on Mesh and insert an inflation control. So right-click on Mesh, click on Inflation, and here we'll discuss briefly the last two options that you have. The first option is the option many folks are familiar with, where we're going to select the entire pipe for our inflation scoping, and then we're going to select the outer wall as our boundary that we're going to inflate away from. And that's one thing that might be helpful for you to remember, is that you're inflating away from that boundary. And this is the third and next method to arrive again at an inflated geometry, inflated mesh. And lastly, we'll look at the third option, or the fourth option, which is to not inflate the entire body, but you can select the face, the inlet face or outlet face, for example, and rather than selecting the face to inflate away from, you select the edge that you would like to inflate away from. And when we generate the mesh, we get yet another inflation layer. And you see model with inflation layer. You'll see here that there is a dramatically different inflation layer from this case. And so you might find from model to model that you may have arrive at a mesh that is preferable with one method versus the other. So in summary, these are the 4 methods that you have available to apply inflation inside the ANSYS mesher. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.